Films leave these huge imprints on you, particularly when you're a child and you see a movie which is as strong and as pungent as Great Expectations. I don't think there's ever been a Dickens film so beautifully translated, the atmosphere so beautifully translated to film.
Guy Green was one of the first British cinematographers to win an Oscar in 1947 for his stunning work on David Lean's Great Expectations.
I've always been interested in photography, and particularly cinematography. And I think it was stimulated by my school day experience, the school projector, and I elected myself as the projectionist. And then when my school days finished, I moved on from there. Actually, somebody at the school who rented the films got me into a company that rented out films, also made commercial movies, and they ran entertainment shows on ocean-going liners. And I, several times, was elected to go and for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or to New York or the Ocean Fields to show films to the passengers. Well, then there was an advert for Shepperton Studios. So they were opening up a new studio called Sound City. It wasn't called Shepperton Studios, it was called Sound City at Shepperton. And they were advertising for crew, and I put myself up and got a job as a clapper boy. My first film was Song of the Plough, directed by John Baxter.
Guy soon moved a boy to camera operator, and on One of Our Aircraft Is Missing met David Lean.
The first time I met David was on a picture called One of Our Aircraft Is Missing, which Michael Powell directed, and David Lean was the editor. And one day he came on the set and complained about a bumpy tracking shot that I'd done, because I was the operator on that film.
In spite of this bumpy start, David Lean, who always had a great eye for talent, asked Guy to operate camera on his first feature as a director, In Which We Serve.
First of all, they sent me up to the north of England to do some shots of destroyers being built. And David was very pleased with that. So when they needed some sea plates and some other atmosphere stuff, they sent me on a destroyer. The captain was a very young, enthusiastic captain looking for boats, ready to destroy them. He wanted to fight. I didn't want to. I wanted to get my background plates. The Way Ahead was my first film as a director of photography. One had always thought in theory that it was very easy to become a lighting cameraman. I've been watching some of my mentors like Otto Kancherek and Claude Friese-Green and Gunter Kramp. I've been watching them, thought I knew everything, but when you come to do it yourself, you find you don't know it. So there were some rough moments, but I got along.
These are just some of the highlights of Guy's career.
The opening sequence, funnily enough, I saw here 2 or 3 years ago, which was Oliver's mother carrying him to the workhouse. And this was set up on a stage at Pine, and it looked quite realistic. It was lit with cloud glasses on the gantry and the roof, which moved, so the cloud shadows were following her across the moor before she got to the workhouse gate. I was very pleased with it, and funny enough, we saw it in the rushes, and David said, "I don't like this at all." And I said, "Well, what's wrong with it?" I said, "I thought it was very good." He said, "It's far too romantic." And I said, "All right, well, then I'll try and do it." So we reshot the whole thing, made it much more edgy and contrasty, and pleased him with it in the end.
Good night, Pip.
Good night, sir. Pip, a young gentleman. Of Great Expectations.
You look at Great Expectations and those opening sequences, it's almost theatrical. It's so simple. You got a sky, which you get clouds in black and white you can never get in color.
If one thinks of Great Expectations, of course, I think immediately of that extraordinary run through the churchyard and the first appearance of Finlay Currie as Magwitch.
Caught it on sort of BBC Two when I was 14 years old or something, and it's a black and white picture that looked like all those other black and white pictures until you spent 5 minutes amongst it, and once you spent 5 minutes with that film, you suddenly realised it was a completely different kettle of fish than the other films that were going on in that period.
Some of the most wonderful images that I think that stay with you forever, and you know, all the film made of a Dickens film, there are none that compare with Great Expectations.
Keep still, you little devil, or I'll cut your throat.
The picture started with Robert Kresker, who had already shot, I think, Brief Encounter with David. And for some reason or other, they didn't get along, or David didn't like what, or maybe the labs let him down, I don't know. But he did a few days' work, and then David got upset and started to look for somebody. And I'd just finished another picture called Carnival, which was also at Denham, and the production manager showed him some of this stuff. He said, well, you know, I think I want to use him. So there we went. I went back with David Lean again, much to my delight.
Principally, I think what was in David's mind and all our minds were original Cruikshank drawings, that sort of style in black and white.
John Brown built a lot of the sets in perspective. One that stands out in my memory is the graveyard with a little model church in the background and the actors in the foreground, and it looked like a real church. But it limited you to the camera angle. You know, you couldn't go in anywhere on a set that was built in perspective. I didn't use a lot of light on it, Great Expectations. I'm very sparing of light. I need a lot of light. There was one scene where Pip goes to visit Miss Havisham, and she lights him up the stairs with a they come in the front door and they go up the stairs. And it took all day rehearsing the electricians with dimmers on and off and this and that to get it right. And we were on a crane as well. But that was one instance where I was allowed to get it right. You know, the people don't have the patience, I don't think, to allow cameramen to do that anymore.
Who is it?
Pitman.
No question that black and white is a purer medium. I mean, it's direct. The whole concept is built up by the cameraman in terms of light and shade.
That's one of the best black and white movies ever shot, I think. And beautiful effects in it. There are in-camera effects, beautiful little tricks and little tricks with the light that are just so subtle. It's a brilliant movie.
We should look back at films of David Lean and his like and remember that it's a country capable of telling big stories, who have big films to make, that we can also look at films like Great Expectations and remember that scale is something which is perfectly possible in Britain as well as abroad.
He would give me an idea about the mood, certainly. And he would sometimes say to me, for instance, well, do this, you know, we don't have too much time, do this quickly, and I'll give you time on something that's more important, and you stick with that.
In 1947, Guy won an Oscar for his work on Great Expectations. It was only the third film he had ever lit and photographed.
We didn't know much about Oscars in those days. This was 47, just after the end of the war, and the communications were poor. And it was 6 months before I actually received the Oscar at the Dorchester, which was given to me by Jean Hersholt and Arthur Rank. But no, I was pleased, not terribly excited though, because we weren't Oscar conscious in those days in England.